Good morning and welcome to Morning Movie News, where first off today, instead of the viewer question, I want to take a moment to remind you that I'm traveling next week for VidCon, which is in Anaheim, California. I'll be half the week in Los Angeles, half the week in Anaheim, which means no Morning Movie News all next week. My apologies, but I will be putting up videos on the main Beyond the Trailer channel, and it's just with doing that, seeing some movies, and then the other things I need to do while I'm traveling, they're just, I don't have enough bandwidth, and my computer, my laptop isn't as fast as my desktop to be able to do Morning Movie News. But I will be particularly active on social media. Tweet me, say hi, and of course, again, videos will be going up on the main channel throughout the week. That should be pretty much business as usual. But I'm very excited to meet those of you who signed up for my meet and greet at VidCon on Saturday morning. I can't wait. And again, I'm going to try and ride Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout. And one of you asked me if I would review it. And if I do ride it, when I get back, I will totally review it. Very exciting. Maybe I can sneak a peek at Star Wars Land. I can't wait. All right, so let's get on to today's three stories, two of which are about Spider-Man. Oh, that Disney connection is paying off. It seems mixed results. But the first thing is it's Spider-Man's turn to swing onto the tracking board. We've been talking about the tracking board a lot lately. Of course, most infamously with Wonder Woman, where it scared the crap out of everyone. But it seemed to light a fire under Warner Brothers, which ended up being a good thing because they were able to go from an initial projection of a $65 million opening, which again seemed reasonable considering other films in the same space, particularly with a female lead, but they got all the way up to 103. Fantastic. So now what's Spider-Man tracking at? Well, Spider-Man Homecoming is expected to open between 90 and 100 million, which is excellent for Wonder Woman if he can't beat her in his sixth outing, right? That would be quite the feather in her cap. And even if Spider-Man just comes a little bit shy of Wonder Woman's opening, he's still in a pretty good space. So let's take a look at what and this might go up. I just want to tell you, if you're a Spider-Man fan and you're like, why do I have to freak out now? That could go up, just as Wonder Woman did. We'll have to see, there are a lot of factors. What's the buzz going to be? What's the Rotten Tomatoes score going to be? Tracking goes up or down depending on things like that. What's the last minute ad campaign like? They've pushed Spider-Man Homecoming pretty hard, but I don't think that for some reason, it's not quite sticking. I'm not quite sure. Spider-Man and sticking. I'm not quite sure what the problem is. I don't know if it's people, again, upset that Robert Downey Jr. muscled his way in there. There's that narrative people are trying to say that they've shown too much of the movie. I don't agree with that, but that, of course, really hurt Batman v Superman. And, again, what's that Rotten Tomatoes score going to be? That's going to be a big deciding factor in what the box office is. I mean, you saw The Mummy fall apart for a number of the same factors. Bad, very bad last minute push, Rotten Tomato score, abysmal. So, those are all things to consider. Also, interestingly, Spider-Man opens after the 4th of July on July 7th, which is a weird strategy. Despicable Me 3 is actually taking the holiday week. It's weird when 4th of July is I think it's like on a Tuesday like this. It's not great for the movie business. And of course, Spider-Man will begin playing in the evening on July 6th. But still, we'll see. People in the United States, this is obviously a United States holiday, but for those of you living overseas, what people tend to do is they take the whole week off, through the weekend. So, that could benefit Spider-Man in that regard. Now, is it getting an MCU boost? Yes and no. I mean, The Amazing Spider-Man 2 opened right at the same place with 91.6 million. And that was despite, by the way, horrible word of mouth from overseas where it opened early, as you might recall, and everyone overseas was like, psst, America, it's horrible. But we still went to see it with a 91.6 million opening. But it was bad, and it did not do well overall at the box office, which is why, of course, they've rebooted it again. Poor Andrew Garfield. He was a good Spider-Man. It wasn't his fault. Speaking of Alex Kurtzman, he killed that too. And he, of course, is in charge of The Mummy. We're going to talk about The Mummy, though. There's something interesting going on with that. today. So anyway, the best opening for Spider-Man ever was, interestingly, Spider-Man 3, also not a particularly well-received film with 151.1, and then the original Spider-Man follows it at 114.8. And by the way, both those numbers aren't counting for inflation, so that really shows what Sam Raimi and Tobey Maguire were able to accomplish. So Spidey's popular, but again, this is his 6th outing, so we'll see how he does. But I mean, that stuff like that E3 game trailer for the new Spider-Man game, stuff like that helps because that looked pretty amazing. But I think it's interesting that a lot of the interest was around Miles Morales, and he, of course, they've just borrowed a lot from Miles Morales and given it to Peter Parker. So annoying. But I'm excited. I can't wait, and I hope all the superhero movies. I want all the movies to do well because it's good not only for us to have fun, but it's good for the industry, right? It's no fun when all these movies are DOA. All right, so anyway, speaking of a Disney boost, Spider-Man is benefiting from Disney's deal with Sphero, a technology toy company, which so far has made them a Lightning McQueen and a BB-8, which can both move around and are somewhat interactive. But this new Spider-Man, which was announced yesterday and is now on sale, is one of the coolest toys I've ever seen, which is why I decided to cover it, because I just thought it was such a step forward in terms of not only toys, but movie marketing and also technology in toys, that I thought we had to talk about it. Some of you might be like, is this sponsored? It's not sponsored whatsoever. I just think it's a really cool toy. So as you can see, he's adorable. He lights up, so he's a little bit of a nightlight as well. And he has, let's see here, expressive eyes, which I think is very cool. When those eyes turn on, he can kind of like just basically make expressions. It's adorable. I couldn't find a good picture of what it does. It also has guard mode or Spidey sense if you want it to know if somebody's coming into your room, that they're not supposed to. And it's voice activated in the same vein. And so you can have conversations with it. You can be like, hey, let's talk about stuff. Of course, it's a little glitchy from some of the reviews I've seen, but I just still think it's probably a very cool experience. And they've programmed him to be sarcastic, like the real Peter Parker. And then here's my favorite thing that I like about it, which I think it's a particularly good toy for younger fans, which is great because you want to keep people interested in comic book characters, and I would hope in their stories like the comics. I think the comic book industry just makes mistake after mistake after mistake. But anyway, this Spider-Man can tell stories. You can say, "Tell me a story, Spidey," and he will tell you a Spider-Man story, and he's supposed to have like 1,000 stored in his programming. And also he'll ask you to interact at key moments. So I think that's fantastic. So if there's a younger Spider-Man fan in your life, or a younger at heart Spider-Man fan in your life, or someone you're trying to indoctrinate into like Spider-Man, try to draft them, I think this is a really fabulous toy. It's $149.99. I think that's, it's a little pricey, but it does really cool things. And I've put a link down below to where you can get it from the company. And if you're in the US, it's free shipping, and I do believe tax-free. So that's pretty good. So I'm curious, what do you guys think of this? I mean, I haven't seen a toy in a long time that I thought really was like really captured my imagination. I feel that just like I feel like the comic book market isn't particularly good, I feel the toy market these days just isn't trying hard enough. And so I'm curious to your thoughts on that, and if you're as intrigued by this toy as I am. All right, so the final story of the day is something that came out actually a day or so ago, and so I got a chance to cover it today. And that's that the blame game has started for whose fault it is that The Mummy is such a disaster. And what do you know? They've decided to target Tom Cruise. He's probably like, whoa, I did not see that coming. But I guess he's a little bit of an easy scapegoat these days because of his, Scientology background and some of the other problems he's had. He's not as Teflon as he used to be. And it looks like the Dark Universe has its first real monster, and that's Tom Cruise, apparently, behind the scenes. That's how Universal is, I think, trying to paint him through back channels, because this was a pretty damning story, I believe, in the Hollywood Reporter, saying that Tom Cruise just had complete creative control. He insisted on it, and poor Universal was like, we really want Tom Cruise in our movie, and this is what it costs. And he just, I don't know why you wouldn't use Alex Kurtzman as the scapegoat. He's got a rap sheet already, right? It's very believable. I don't know why you would throw somebody under the bus who's supposed to appear in some of your future films. Although maybe not. They did announce these aren't going to be interconnected, so they're like, let's just get rid of Tom Cruise. I'm telling you, it's Alex Kurtzman. I mean, because Tom Cruise has had complete creative control on other movies, and they've turned out really good. So I take this with a giant grain of salt, and I'm surprised. I'm surprised that the studio would go after their star, but they're saying that he was just ridiculous, and everything was his idea. How they handled the filming, how they handled post-production, even the ad campaign. They're like, yeah, because I talked about Universal and Movie Math doing a bad job with their ad campaign, and they're like, oh yeah, that was all Tom Cruise, and you're like, really? Really? Just at some point you have to be like, sorry, Tom Cruise, F you. I'm going to release this, this spot or this news story, right? I mean, it just seems absolutely ridiculous to me. Stand up to, I'll be like, just sit Tom Cruise down and say, how would you like to have a giant flop on your resume? Because that's the way it's going. But interestingly, yesterday, some spin control came out in the unlikeliest of places, New York Magazine's Vulture. I thought it was interesting they decided Vulture is their pop culture. I don't know why it's called Vulture. That's kind of disparaging to the entertainment news industry, right? But that's New York Magazine's entertainment branch, covering, pop culture, I guess is a better way to describe it. But I'll put a link down below to the video description. I'll put it to both articles. And they have 19 things that Tom Cruise has done that are unsettlingly nice. They're like, what a prince he is. And I thought it was interesting because I've heard a number of these stories, and some of them I've heard from people who, like for instance, I know some people who get the famous Tom Cruise coconut cake, and it's as good as legend tells. And so I not only thought these stories rang true, but I thought they were very Tom Cruise, that he's a little bit, very much somebody who's in a bubble. I think partially because of starting out in the industry, perhaps so early on, and then also, of course, what Scientology has done to him. So it's really interesting to see how he operates. And the stories that people tell about him, like the Dakota Fanning birthday gift story, okay, I'll tell you that one really fast, but I just think that you can hear his voice in the way, like with Jake Johnson talking about Tom Cruise, telling him he can use his gym whenever he wants. He's like, let me make something crystal clear. And you're like, that sounds just like Tom Cruise. It's hilarious. But anyway, with Dakota Fanning, this is a nice story. She said that Tom Cruise has for years sent her a birthday gift, usually shoes for some reason. I don't know how he continues to know what her shoe size is as she's grown up, but he sends her shoes. And she said, and it was, two things. It was interesting. Like Tom Cruise does nice things for people, but nobody seems to understand why or talk to him about it, which I also think is weird. And it's a little sad too. Like, why doesn't someone say, hey, why not talk to him some more and say, why did you do this for me? That's so nice. Do you want to go get lunch or something maybe? So Tom Cruise apparently, keeps buying her gifts every year. And Dakota Fanning was like, I thought maybe he'd stop when I turned 18, and he didn't. And I thought maybe he'd stop when I turned 21, and he didn't. And it's just crazy. And then also Zac Efron said that Tom Cruise reached out to him and said, do you want to learn how to ride a motorcycle? And he was like, sure. And, Zac Efron said, I have no idea why he did it, and I don't want to know. I just thought it was nice that he cared. And I'm like, I don't know. I thought the I don't want to know implied like other intentions perhaps. And so I was like, why do you have to go there, Zac Efron? Just say, he's a sweetheart. And then, and just, I don't know. I don't know if Tom Cruise wants more friends. It's just a very interesting situation. But I think Tom Cruise is reaching out for help. I don't know. It's also, he makes it tough to love him because, you don't want to get roped into Scientology, right? So you're like, I'd love to hang out with you more, Tom Cruise, but I'm not going to become a Scientologist. So we're at a crossroads here. But it's fascinating. It's, someday I'm sure they'll make a Tom Cruise movie behind the scenes, and it'll just be, I think a really sad story, to tell you the truth. So we'll see. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on it down below. So that's today's morning movie news. Please write down below, I think, today's top 3 stories. And again, I'm looking forward to seeing some of you in Anaheim next week, and check back for coverage on the main Beyond the Trailer channel as usual. And then, of course, morning movie news will return when I return. All right. Thanks for watching. Bye.